Your mattress is made of straw and mice. They rustle beneath you when you shift. You don't scream. You've stopped screaming months ago. Now you just apologize to the mouse. The blank, it is rough, more sack than cloth. It smells like every night you've ever had. Sweat, old ash, a whisper of herbs that once hung above the door. You don't remember who hung them. Something presses into your ribs. A fig seed, maybe, or a pebble. Or regret you breathe in, and there it is again, that strange scent, like something burning and blooming at the same time. You know it doesn't exist anymore, not really, but still, you smell it. Rosewater and meat smoke, crushed myrrh and donkey hair, cardamom, fish oil, camel dung, mint. It's the smell of the old market, not the tidy one in books, the real one, the one layered in memory and mud. You close your eyes. You can still feel the stall ropes on your fingertips, still hear the cough of the baker as he leaned over fire, still see that child with the garland crown who vanished between the spice sacks and never came back. You were there once, not as a scholar, not as a noble as someone smaller, someone forgettable. You carried something important. You were always carrying something, and now you're afraid you've forgotten what it was. They talk of history as if it's made of stone and kings, but history was soft. It was wet fabric and warm garlic. It was broken sandals and the way cinnamon clung to your wrists for hours after market day. But none of that made it into the scrolls. The scrolls are silent. The paintings are too clean. So ask yourself, what if the truth of history wasn't what was written, but what was smelled? What if you could follow the scent trail backwards through ash and sweat and honeyed res, and all the way to the heart of what was lost? Would you go? Would you trade a warm bed for a breath of forgotten spice? Would you carry rose petals in the crook of your elbow just to remember? The world you knew is gone, but it smells. Linger, close your eyes, inhale. You're not in bed anymore. You're back in the market. The heat is rising from the clay. The first merchant is stirring camel fat into a tin bowl. You can hear him humming. So tell us, where are you listening from, or what time your night begins? It starts with a bundle of cloth pressed to your chest. Heavy, damp, fragrant, you walk slowly, careful not to jostle it. Inside are petals, dozens, maybe hundreds, plucked before dawn from bushes that grew crooked on the palace's southern wall. They smell like syrup in summer. Some are bruised, some perfect. All of them are destined to be forgotten by tomorrow. You're not the gardener. You're not even the perfume boy. You're the one who walks, from courtyard to distillery, from basket to basin. You walk slowly, because if you drop even one petal, someone will notice, and someone will complain, and someone will remember your name in the wrong way. The path leads you through the inner market, not the loud one with donkeys and fish guts, but the quieter, walled market near the temple kitchens. This one smells richer, stranger, less like hunger, more like memory. You pass the wax booth first. A woman stirring hot camel fat into little clay pots, mixing in yellow dye with a stick no thicker than your finger. Her face is pink from steam, her hair covered in thin linen. She doesn't look up. The air smells thick here. A strange blend, sour smoke, melting oil, and something like burnt almond. Then the leather cutters, they sit cross, legged on mats, scraping hides with iron blades. The scent is impossible to miss. Wet, raw, like blood left in the sun. You breathe through your mouth. A mistake. One of them sees you flinch. He grins. A single gold tooth glints like a coin in his cheek. You nod, because politeness might be the only armor you have left. Beyond them, the air sweetens, slowly. First, it's vinegar and crushed pomegranate from the pickling stall. Then, a whisper of honeycomb and sesame, where a boy fans flies from a silver tray. And then, the spice merchant. You don't look directly at him. You never do. His eyes are lined with coal, his beard dyed a strange rust red. He sits surrounded by little clay jars, some open, some sealed with beeswax. The scent here is dizzying. Powdered saffron, black cumin, dried myrtle, and strange herbs you only recognize by the way they make your teeth ache. He says nothing, but he sees you. You walk faster. The petals begin to sweat in your arms. You feel their perfume soak into your tunic. You'll smell like roses until nightfall, and after that, just dust. The distillery is ahead, stone building, no windows, a fire pit out front. The worker there is silent. He takes your bundle, says nothing, nods once, you bow slightly, though no one taught you how. Your knees ache when you straighten, you turn to go, but something catches your nose. Behind the firewood, in the corner, a clay vessel cracked open, its contents drying in the sun. It smells like rot, spice, and something floral, almost like a funeral. You know what it is. Fermented date paste and cardamom, left too long, spoiled, but you pause anyway. Your stomach clenches. Not in disgust, in memory. You don't know why. Maybe your mother made sweets like that. Maybe your hands once carried something similar in another city, another courtyard, another life. You're not sure. Memory is like scent, it clings, but it fades. You walk back the way you came. Now the market smells different. The wax stall is quiet. Its scent, cloying. The leather cutters are gone. Only salt left on the mats. The spice merchant is folding cloth over his jars, and now the bakery begins its work. You pass under the arch just as the first trays are brought out. Not for customers. No, these are for the priests. The bread is made with barley and goat's milk. The scent is warm, sour, and soft. Like home, if home were made of ovens. You inhale deeply. This is what people forget. Not the names, not the gods, not even the politics. They forget the smells. The way a market teaches your nose the calendar cumin in spring. Figs in summer, vinegar in winter. You pass a girl selling peeled garlic in a woven tray. She waves. You don't know her name, but she always waves. And farther along, a boy is crying. Someone stole his dried apricots. You know the thief. You won't tell. You turn into the alley where the stone cutters work. Their shavings smell like dust and lime. Your sandal scrapes something soft, a fruit skin, orange, almost fresh. You feel tired, not from walking, from remembering. You didn't always live here. You didn't always carry petals. There was a time your hands smelled like metal, like horses, like salt. You blink hard. The scent of roses is fading. Your tunic now smells like smoke again. You reach your corner. You sit. Salt the rat is not here tonight. You lie down. The mat is colder than before. You close your eyes and smell. What would your scent be if someone found your tunic in 1,000 years? Dust, rosewater, camel fat. Would they remember anything about you, just from that? You didn't mean to follow the scent, but it pulled you anyway. Even now, as you turn away from the rose distillery and the market's thinning hum, your legs carry a memory that isn't yours. A path your feet seem to know. Though no one ever taught it to you, the alley narrows, stone walls to both sides, cold even under the sun. The light barely reaches here. It feels like walking down a throat. The scent clings to the damp. Something between perfume and rot. You pass a pale curtain. It breathes in the breeze like tired lungs. Behind it, silence or maybe prayer. You're not sure which is softer. There used to be a dye shop here. You remember that, or someone told you? Indigo vats that stained boys' fingers blue for weeks. One of them lost his fingernail once and laughed as if it meant nothing. Now there is no shop, just the ghost of purple dust on the cracked threshold. You kneel, press your fingers into the stone. They come up empty. The wind turns, a new scent. Wool soaked in brine, dried citrus peel, and underneath it blood. Not fresh, but not gone. You rise slowly. Your knees complain. Your sandals squeak again. So much for reverence. Ahead is the tannery. It's not where it used to be. They've moved the main stalls to the far edge of the city, closer to the river. The smell was too strong for the temple scribes, too human. But some workers still bring hides here to soak and scrape. Illegally, maybe. Quietly, definitely. You stop behind a stack of dried palm fronds. Watch, a man dips a goat skin into a thick tub. His arms are corded with veins and fly bites. A boy beside him stirs something into the bath. Piss, lime, crushed pomegranate peel. No one speaks. There's only the sound of wet leather and breath. The scent rises, Salt, flesh, tannin, faint mint from the boy's hands. He must have handled herbs earlier. It hits the back of your throat. You cough, just once. The man glances toward the fronds. You freeze. But he doesn't shout. He doesn't move. He simply says, memory is a kind of acid too. Then he returns to his work. You stand there a long while, watching, breathing, because he's right. Memory softens the truth until it folds in your hands like hide. Until you can stretch it into whatever shape you need to survive. You leave quietly, past the palm fronds, back to the wider road. It is later now. The shadows are longer, and the city begins to hum in a different key. The market's outer edges swell with evening stalls. Grain sellers bring out woven bags and tilt them open. Millet, barley, cracked lentils. You can smell the dust rise as they scoop. The scent is dry and old, like the bottom of a grandmother's jar. A child runs past you, holding a stick of candied date. He is too fast to catch, but the sweetness trails behind him like a memory. Someone is frying onions. You smell them before you see them. Thin slices in oil, popping like coals. The scent wraps around you like a scarf. You close your eyes, and they're your mother's voice, not words. Just the rise and fall of her breath when she cooked late. The silence between the sizzle and the spoon scraping the pot. You used to sit under the table, picking pebbles from between the bricks. When you open your eyes, a woman is handing you a small piece of bread. She says nothing, just presses it into your palm and moves on. You don't eat it right away. It's warm, soft on one side, crisp on the other. You hold it for a while, as if to remind yourself you're real. Then you bite, and just like that you're 7 years old again. And the market is never ended. You pass by the incense sellers next. They sit cross-legged on red mats with trays of resin and bundles of herbs. Some scents are sharp, frankincense, pine, dried citrus rind. Others are smoky, sweet, heavy, like honey dipped in ash. One tray holds a mound of black powder. You recognize it. Charcoal and crushed clove, used in mourning ceremonies, a quiet scent, one that waits. The seller catches your eye. He says, looking for something lost. You hesitate, then say, I don't know yet. He nods like that's the right answer and turns away. Farther on, you reach the cloth quarter. Here, the world is a wall of color. Drapes of dyed linen sway above your head. Some are stiff with wax, others soft as moss. The wind moves through them. Each one whispers its own perfume indigo, crushed figs, soaproot, moth-repellent herbs, and faint human sweat. You press your fingers to a faded bolt of purple cotton. It smells like temple oil and rain. Someone once wore this, danced in it, fasted in it, loved in it, but the cloth remembers more than the wearer. It remembers sun. It remembers wind. It remembers the arm that wove it, and the hand that wrung it out above the riverbank. Your hands are dry now, but they remember the feeling, the twist of wet fabric. The cold sting of rinsed dye on your knuckles. You stay there for a long time, just breathing, just remembering. The sun dips lower. Lanterns begin to wake on ropes overhead. Their oil is thick and musky. The smoke softens the market's sharper scents. Rosewater again. Somewhere nearby, someone has opened a fresh vial. You know because it's the real kind, the expensive kind, the one made from petals soaked before sunrise, distilled in copper, and bottled in green glass wrapped with twine. You follow it, not quickly. You've learned better than that. Around one corner, then another. The scent gets stronger. It leads you to a shuttered doorway. No sign, no stall. Just a small wooden door, carved with a lotus and burned at the edges. You knock not because you're brave, because you're tired of wondering. A voice inside says, only open for the ones who remember. You don't answer. You just stand there. Your fingers smell like onions and leather now. Your sandals are full of dust. Your eyes sting a little from the smoke. But you remember. You remember the market as it was, and as it still is. Beneath the noise, beneath the selling, beneath the story. The door opens, just a crack, enough for a smell to reach you. Not rosewater, not spice, something older. A smell like grief pressed into honey, ash warmed by breath, the scent of something, waiting. You take one step forward, and the door closes again. Not locked, just, not yet. You stand there in the smoke, with rosewater on your shirt, and the onion still on your tongue. You wonder what is the scent of a life never lived, and how long does it linger. You return the next day, not early, not late, just when the shadows begin to shrink under their own heat. You carry nothing in your hands, not petals, not bread, just the memory of a door. The market is louder now. Someone is arguing over lentils. A donkey refuses to move. A child screams, laughs, then screams again. How all one sound, but beneath it all, there it is, that same breath of scent, faint but undeniable. Like a perfume trail walked into the folds of time, the wooden door is still there, lotus carving, burned edges, still closed, no sign, no knock this time. You place your hand on the latch and wait. No words, no invitation, but the door softens under your fingers, as if it was never locked. Just forgotten, it opens, not fully, just enough. The light inside is gold, not daylight, not firelight, oil lamps. Hanging from rusted hooks set into the clay walls, each flame shivers slightly as though it breathes, and the smell hits you like a whisper to the chest. Sandal, wood, smoke, cured dates, the metallic sweetness of overripe fig. And deeper still a dry scent you cannot place, like cloth buried too long beneath the floorboards, or secrets folded into parchment. You step inside. The floor is packed earth, cool under your soles. The room is narrow, not a shop, not a temple, something between. Shelves line the walls, not full, just scattered objects carefully placed. A bundle of cinnamon tied with blue thread, a clay vial labeled in fading script. First rain, a bit of burned wool tucked into a bronze bowl, a child's sandal. Wrapped in mint leaves, nothing is for sale. No one greets you, and yet you are not alone. A presence lingers, not watching, just remembering. Your breath feels loud in the silence. You try not to disturb anything, but your fingers ache to touch. You move toward a table in the center. Upon it, a bowl of sand, still warm, embedded in it, half melted lumps of resin tears from forgotten trees. A slip of parchment lies beside it, written in a woman's hand. Scent is the language of what was never said aloud. You sit, slowly, carefully, because it feels like you are sitting beside something sacred. Not holy, just human. You close your eyes and let your nose guide you. You smell. Fish brine on a wooden cart, goat's milk boiling over, cilantro crushed between two stones, and then the scent of death. Not blood, not rot, the soft scent that settles after it's done, like cinnamon dust left in a sealed jar, like linen folded for the last time. You open your eyes. A woman is standing across from you. You hadn't heard her arrive. She wears a scarf wrapped tightly around her head, dyed rust red. Her eyes are lined in ash, her hands ink-stained, trembling slightly. She looks at you the way a candle looks at a mirror. Not with curiosity, but recognition. You followed it back. She says, you nod. Words feel too loud, too modern. She moves to the shelf, takes down a clay jar, opens it. The scent is immediate. A slap of cold salt. Almond oil and something feral, like old wool and ash. You flinch. She doesn't smile, but her voice softens. Funeral boats. She says, used to burn myrrh and sheep's fat together, to confuse the spirits, or the mourners. Depends on who you ask. She closes the jar, places it in front of you. The smell is the last thing memory lets go of. She says, then, more softly, and the first thing grief returns to. You don't ask her name. Instead, you ask, why keep these? She tilts her head. Because the world is forgetting, she says. They remember wars and rulers, but no one remembers what it smelled like when the temple dogs gave birth in the spice alley. You nod slowly, because you've walked that alley. You've stepped over those pups. You remember their fur smelled like saffron and smoke. She returns to her work, grinding something. It smells like rosemary and ink. You sit in silence, breathing, fading. Because somehow, this is where you were always going, not to learn, not to find answers, just to remember. The room grows dimmer. The lamps burn low. You rise. The woman says nothing. You leave the jar where she placed it. Unopened, still warm. Outside, the market is softer. Twilight, the crowds are thinner, but the smells remain. Roasting chestnuts, boiled lentils, the sharp sting of vinegar on wet clay. You walk past a fruit cart. The seller is asleep, head resting on a bundle of old linens. You recognize the smell, not the fruit, The cloth, musty, rose oil and thyme. You almost ask his name, but you don't, because you know what he would say. It doesn't matter. You've already smelled me. The sun is gone. Only the red, gold haze of oil lamps left. The stone beneath your feet is cooling. You sit on the edge of the well, near the old market gate. The same one where the spice merchant's brother was buried or burned. You're not sure anymore, but you remember the cloves his widow threw into the fire. The scent filled the whole street. People said it smelled like a wedding. You dip your fingers into the dust beside the well. Lift them to your nose. Nothing. But your eyes sting anyway, because even the smells are fading now, even your own. What is the scent of a person forgotten? Is it salt, smoke, mice, or maybe a sandal left in the rain, crushed roses beneath a basket of grain, wax from a temple no one worships in anymore? The wind shifts, you breathe in, you swear. Just faintly, you can still smell the girl who used to sell oranges in the corner. She wore too much saffron. She always sang off key, and she is gone. But her scent, still there, just barely. You close your eyes, let the night fold around you, and you wonder if you disappeared tomorrow. What scent would the world miss most? The smell wakes you, not a loud one, a ghost. Faint ash, a curl of lemon peel left on a windowsill, dust warming in the early light. You sit up slowly. The mat beneath you creaks like tired joints. Your back does the same. It's morning again, or maybe late morning. Time here doesn't shout, it hums. The market hasn't begun to shout either. Not yet, but it's stirring. You can hear the grind of a shutter being pulled open. A whisper of broom on stone, someone coughing, deep and wet, then spitting into the alley gutter. That too is part of the city's scent. Spit and sandal, wood, labor and leftover bread. You splash water on your face from the basin. It smells like last week. You don't bother with perfume. You're not a priest, and no one's watching. Your hands smell faintly of wax and lemon oil anyway, from that temple girl who bumped into you yesterday. Her basket overturned, and you helped her gather the votive candles before they could roll into the gutter. She smiled, not at you, at the candles, as if they mattered more. You left smelling like her. And something about that. Hasn't quite left, the market calls. You go. But today, you take a different path. You walk behind the baker's oven instead of in front of it. Past the alley where the torch boy sleeps during the day, curled like a cat behind stacked amphorae. His dreams always smell of smoke and wet stone. He once told you this. You believed him. You pass by the old coin washer next. She's scrubbing copper drachmas in wine vinegar. She doesn't trust water. Too clean, she mutters always. Water forgets. You lean down and sniff the basin. She glares, then shrugs. You'll remember that. She says, she's right. You already do. The scent of metal and acid sings in your sinuses, sharp as memory itself. Up ahead, the cloth boy is boiling indigo in a tall bronze pot. The steam is nearly blue. He's too young to be working with dye. His fingernails are stained permanent violet. His eyes always red. But he hums while he stirs. A tune you know, a tune your grandmother hummed while combing your hair beside the window with the cracked shutter. The smell here is dangerous, not just strong, haunting. Indigo isn't just a dye, it's a marker. People wear it when they're mourning, or when they want to be seen as deep spiritual. But mostly, they wear it to hide stains. The boy grins at you. You want some on your robe. You don't answer, but your robe is already speckled blue. You walk on. The market has begun to open its mouth now. Not wide, not loud, but enough to breathe out its old lungs. You pass a seller arranging trays of dried fruit. Apricot like softened leather. Dates like wrinkled knuckles. Figs split open to reveal their seedy red insides, pulsing with scent. He sprinkles rosewater over the lot. You watch it bead and vanish. His hands are cracked. He rubs them against his robe every time he finishes a tray. You wonder if his sleeves remember more scent than his memory does. You stop near the pigeon man. His cages are stacked high, birds blinking slowly in the heat. Their scent is sour, feathers, old feed, a note of vinegar. One of them is cooing a soft, broken rhythm. You say nothing. You listen, because that sound once came from your own throat, the day you were caught stealing pomegranate seeds from the priest's garden. Your punishment was not pain, it was silence. 3 days without being spoken to, not a word, not even a name. That silence smelled like limestone dust and bruised mint leaves. You remember it still. Now the temple bell rings, faint, dull, just once. People turn their heads. It's not a holy day, but the bell tolls anyway. The market holds its breath, then resumes. You walk toward the bell's echo. Up the stone path where the temple gates sit wide but unwelcome. Not everyone enters, you do, because the scent here is not sacred. It is ancient, cold incense, sun, warmed lintels, mice in old fabric. A woman kneels before a basin, washing her feet with myrrh. Scented oil. Her braid brushes the stone. You step around her, not to interrupt, to preserve the stillness. Inside the inner chamber, the air is heavy. Not with faith, with memory, you sit. No one stops you. There's a bundle of fabric beside the altar. Tied with string, you reach for it. Unwrap slowly. Inside, a linen pouch, sealed. You bring it to your nose. And the world falls away. You smell. A riverbank in spring, bread gone sour, sweat from a lover's neck, broken sandal straps, burnt pine needles, a donkey's sigh, your chest tightens. You do not open the pouch. It has already told you more than enough. You replace it, carefully. You do not belong here, but neither does anyone else. History is not made in temples. It is gathered in pouches, in robes, in corners. It clings, then fades. Outside, the air is thicker. Smoke from meat stalls rises like prayers no one answers. You see a woman fanning skewers of lamb over charcoal. The fat sizzles. You smell cumin and old fire. And suddenly, you are starving, not for food, for then. For when you still remembered what your father's hands smelled like, olive oil, iron, dust, you cross the square. The same square where a foreign prince once fell from his elephant. No one talks about it, but they remember, because for days after, the whole plaza smelled like crushed rose garlands and dung. You sit by the statue now, the one whose nose fell off 3 summers ago. Birds nest in the hollow, the wind shifts. A merchant nearby is pouring perfume into glass bottles. One breaks, the scent flies. It is pure, rose, musk, saffron, civet, and the faintest trace of copper. You close your eyes, and it's not a market anymore. It's a battlefield, a wedding, a fever dream. You open them again. The world is the same, but something is missing. You check your pockets, empty. You check your chest. You are breathing, but the air feels thinner now. What have you lost? What scent has slipped through your ribs without goodbye? You don't know, but you feel its absence like a thumbprint on wet clay. And you wonder, when a city forgets a smell, does it still remember the people who carried it? The basket digs into your spine as you rise. The mat beneath you is still warm from your body, your only kindness tonight. It smells of worn jute and onion peel. Outside, the sky has not turned yet. It's that colorless hour between night and dawn when everything feels as though it might never return to color. You move quietly, almost unsure of your own weight. The air is thin, dry. It pulls against your nose like cloth. You'd fallen asleep near the tannery. The wind has changed, and now you smell it again. That peculiar stench, like sour goatskin, charred hair, rotting figs, and salt. Not the fresh kind of salt, the old kind. The kind scraped from beneath the arms of a man who's walked too far. It curls in your lungs before you can stop it. There's nothing quite like the stink of lime, soaked leather. The vats behind the walls are silent now, but they've bled enough into the air to haunt the entire street. You cover your nose with your sleeve, too late. The stink always wins. Still, you rise, because you must. Because you promised someone long ago you'd bring back rose petals from the other end of the market. And while that someone no longer remembers your name, the promise sits inside your ribs like a stone. You pass the vinegar pots without looking. Even vinegar has pride. It's what keeps the blood off butcher tables and the flies from returning too soon. But there's no pride left in you this morning. Just tired limbs and a dull headache that started sometime yesterday and never really went away. Your stomach mutters something unkind, and you keep walking. The market is not yet open, but the shadows are already waiting. They huddle in the corners. Then men with carts, women pressing bread dough in their palms, old vendors blinking into the breeze, as though to read the sky. You wonder if they slept at all. Probably not. Sleep is for the rich, or the young, or the foolish. A vendor pulls up a flap of cloth and reveals a small barrel. The smell of pickled lemons escapes like a guilty secret. Another mutters to herself as she unwraps stale thyme, greenish, brown, crushed and clinging to the folds of the paper. You pass a woman snapping dried fish spines into a basket, her fingers quick, her face absent, as though she's still dreaming of something softer. They've all made peace with the smell. You haven't, not yet. You pause in front of the perfume man. He's not really a perfume seller, not in the formal sense. He doesn't wear linen gloves, doesn't smile with his teeth, doesn't lean toward noblewomen and whisper, "This one has rosewater from Damascus." No, this man sells scent in the oldest way. His fingers are stained. His table is cracked, but in the bowls, soft piles of resin and ground petals, musk scraped from glands of civet cats, and waxy clumps of something between oil and ash. He lifts a lid and fans the scent toward you. "Camel fat," he says like it's a blessing. You almost gag. He nods, satisfied. "You'll get used to it. The noble ones wear it under their arms, keeps the linen from sticking." You don't ask why he knows that. You don't ask how he obtained it. You just nod because your throat is full. He lifts a second lid. "Ambergris," he whispers. The smell is stranger this time. Salty, sweet, like damp wood and old silk. Your nose wrinkles. "That's the sea," he says, after it's died and come back. You stare at the lump of waxy gray in the bowl. It looks like a mistake, but apparently it once lived inside a whale. Now it's rubbed behind ears in the palace. You can't afford it. You step back. "Nothing today." The man asks. You hesitate, then point to a small bundle wrapped in linen. "Roses," he nods, "crushed fresh this week. Not much scent left, but the color's still good." You pay with 2 broken coins and a dried fig. He accepts without comment. You carry the roses like a secret. They smell faintly of rain. The petals are tired, faded at the edges, but somehow still beautiful. You tuck the bundle into your satchel and feel the weight of it, like carrying someone's last words. The bread woman has begun baking. You smell yeast and fire. It hits your chest first, then your knees, then your tongue. Bread is the smell of survival, of corners turned, of mornings that did not win. You're about to ask for a crust when something interrupts you. A shout, far down the row, then a crash. You turn. It's the oil vendor. He slipped on spilled olives and landed hard on his crates, amphory smashed. Liquid seeping into the dust. He's holding his leg and swearing in 3 languages. You take a step forward, then stop. No one helps him. That's how it works here. No time. No kindness left in the bones. Everyone has their own wounds to count. Still, you pause, because it reminds you of your brother, the one who fell into a market ditch years ago and came home with a limp that never healed. You'd forgotten the sound until now. Eventually, the vendor is lifted by his son. He limps away. No one claps. No one notices, not even the doves. You continue on. Your sandals squeak. So much for dignity. You arrive at the far corner of the market. This is where the spice tables begin. And here, the air changes. It's warmer here, not in temperature, but in memory. You smell cinnamon first, sharp and sweet, like something stolen from a palace kitchen. Then cumin, toasted and earthy, cloves, cardamom, dried orange peel. Someone tosses peppercorns into a pan and roasts them over flame. The smoke stings your eyes. A woman offers you a pinch of sumac. It tastes like lemon and ash. You nod. She grins, toothless. Her hands are dusted red. You ask for saffron. She laughs. "Saffron's for the dead, little one." You want marigold powder. Smells the same, looks the same, won't bankrupt you. You buy a pinch. It smells like bedtime stories and rice. You hold it close. You almost forget where you are. You find a patch of shade behind the date seller's stall. You sit. Your back aches. You unwrap the rose petals and place them in your lap. Then the marigold. Then the spice. A quiet museum of forgotten smells. A child walks past and asks if you're selling. You shake your head. I'm remembering. You say softly. He nods like he understands. Maybe he does. Maybe he doesn't, but he leaves you alone. You close your eyes, and the smells dance behind your lids. Camel fat and rose, oil and bread, musk and ambergris and cumin smoke. Each scent is a memory. Each memory is a ghost. You are surrounded by things that will vanish by evening, that will be swept up and burned, eaten, rubbed away, covered over by perfume and dung and time. You wonder if smells are the truest record of history. Because the scrolls will rot, and the stones will crack, but scent lives in breath, and breath always betrays us. You breathe in one more time, and realize you smell something else now, not perfume. Not food, something metallic, distant, like heat and rust and blood. What could that be? You walk like someone who no longer believes in soft mornings. Your feet know this path before your mind does. The alleys grow narrower here, the air darker, more private. Stone walls lean together overhead like old women whispering secrets. And you are not supposed to be here, but the scent has pulled you in. You're following something invisible, not rose, not musk, not bread. Something older, something almost forgotten, an ache maybe, a smell like rotting sweetness, sugar that's slept too long in a cellar. Another merchant's passage, you assume, or some spilled date paste left to ferment. But no, it's stronger than that, and stranger, and now you're standing in front of a doorway made entirely of stitched camel leather. It creaks like ribs as you press inside. Inside it's warm, not cozy. Warm, fat warm. A kind of heat that clings to your throat, coats the walls, seeps into your bones. The kind of heat that carries memory. This is not a place of perfume. This is a place of rendering. A shop of smells that built empires. A tannery by trade. A fat, boiler's hidden room by need. You cough, but you don't leave. Because on a low wooden bench, between racks of stretched intestines and jars of hardened resin, sits an old man melting history in a bronze bowl. Camel fat. You've smelled it before on soldiers' boots, on the hems of traveling cloaks, on the wind that comes after war. But never like this, never pure. He is boiling the past. It's for ointments. The man says without looking up, and fireproofing. You nod, though you don't understand either. He stirs it like someone remembering too much. Then adds a pinch of crushed myrrh, then some vinegar. The smell turns darker like burning sugar and blood. Used to rub it on soldiers before they marched. He says, keeps the cold out, keeps the gods in. You wonder if it worked? But don't ask. There's something about his tone too casual to be casual. You've heard it in widows' voices. The practiced neutrality of people who survived something unspeakable. Outside, a boy runs past the door, laughing. Inside, the fat hisses. The man stops stirring. They don't remember. He murmurs, they come for perfumes now, rose oil, sandalwood, but none of that mattered when your skin cracked open in the wind. You blink. The room sways, because suddenly you remember something you never lived: the sharp whip of winter through linen, the salt bite of sweat on cracked hands, the need for something thick and ugly to keep you human. And the smell makes sense. It's not pleasant, but it's necessary, like grief. You thank him, though you don't know why. Outside again, you gulp the alley air like someone surfacing from underwater. It's no fresher, but at least it's dry. It smells like dust and garlic and baked limestone, which is better than sorrow. You lean against the wall and realize you're tired, not just from walking, but from knowing too much. There are still so many smells left to chase, still so many ghosts disguised as merchants. The sun is falling now, not setting, just slumping sideways, like a tired market boy resting against a barrel. Everything in the city softens with it. Sounds turn muffled. Colors dim into cloth. You walk on toward the part of the bazaar where things get crushed. Spices, flowers, hopes. You pass a row of women grinding dried herbs into glass jars, not for medicine, but for ritual. Rue for luck, wormwood for sleep, lavender for warding, mint for mourning. One woman grinds something darker charred cedarwood. It smells like funeral smoke. She nods at you without warmth, then turns away, already forgetting you. You understand, the old women of the market do not traffic in greetings. Their greetings are what they sell. Comfort, protection, illusion. Your fingers twitch toward your pouch. You still have no coin. But the scent draws you deeper. There, in the final stall before the mosque walls rise, you see her. A girl, or maybe a very small woman, pressing rose petals into clay molds. Her hands are stained pink and brown. Her fingernails hold glittering dust, but she is not making perfume. She is making prayer beads, tiny rows, paste spheres, crushed and shaped and left to dry under linen. Their scent will last for decades long after the bloom forgets itself. You've heard of these before. They're worn by widows. She catches your eye but says nothing. You feel stupid. You're covered in soot and camel fat and regret. But she doesn't flinch, just tilts her head and says, "You're late." You don't ask what she means. Instead, you kneel beside her and watch. She presses petal after petal into her palm, then into the mold. Her face is blank, not serene, not sad, just practiced, as if she's pressing memory into something wearable. You ask how many petals it takes to make a single bead. She says 14. You ask how many beads in a strand. She says 99. You do the math badly, then ask what happens to the leftover petals. She doesn't answer. Maybe there are no leftovers. Maybe that's the point. One petal wasted, one prayer forgotten, one scent lost to the wind. She wraps a half, finished strand in linen and lays it in a wooden box beside others, some red, some brown, some nearly black. You think about all the women who will wear them. You wonder what they'll pray for, and whether prayers smell different depending on the person. She touches your wrist softly, like a farewell, and you leave, because the sun has gone now, and the night smells like bread again. You walk slower now, not because you're tired, though you are, but because the city feels like it's holding its breath. The market is quieted. Not ended, just paused. Stalls are being shuttered. Sand is swept across stone. Fires smolder low in clay braziers, and all around you the smells settle. Rose dust, burnt oil, wet limestone, lamb fat. Sweat, mint, cedar, musk, thyme. You realize something. The market is never truly silent. Its smells speak longer than voices. Long after the sellers sleep, the city remembers, but tonight, you remember too. And the only thing you can't smell anymore, the one thing that should be here and isn't, is the scent of your own home. Or maybe you never had one, but that wasn't even the strangest part. You duck beneath the frayed linen flap. The marketplace behind you still hisses with steam, chickens, and the groaning wood of overloaded carts. But here, beneath this faded cream canopy, the world hushes. Just enough to breathe, and the first breath inside this tent feels like biting into a story. It smells of wet linen left in the rain, that cold, soft, almost metallic scent of old water soaked deep into cotton. But there's something else under it too, a bitterness, like cloth that got too close to the fire. A sharp, thin edge, the scent of scorched fibers, as though someone tried to press folds from a robe with a hot bronze iron, and forgot it for just a second too long. You wrinkle your nose slightly, not in disgust, but confusion. The smell tugs on something older than memory, a time when you were smaller, wrapped in thin fabric under a leaking roof. Or maybe when you burned your sleeve trying to dry it over a coal brazier. You're not sure. Scents do that here, they don't just arrive. They remind. The seller, a silent man with a heavy black beard and soot beneath his fingernails, doesn't greet you. He simply gestures toward long bolts of cloth coiled like sleeping serpents' whites, creams, pale yellows. But it's not the color that matters in this tent. It's weight. You lift a bolt with both hands. Its size in your palms, and instantly the smell of sun. Warmed soap rises faint, like memory again, but clean, soft. As though this cloth has been washed by someone's grandmother, and left in the sun on a flat stone to dry, somewhere far from here. A village smell, a trust smell, but the scent doesn't last, because as you shift to the next row, the smell darkens. Mildew, damp ashes, cold air. You blink. This roll has been stored too long perhaps in the back of a caravan during the rainy season. It smells like mold that's just started to whisper into the fibers. Not yet dangerous, but enough to remind you of sickness. The seller watches, still silent. His hands are folded behind him, and his eyes are not unkind. He knows what you're doing. You're not here to buy. You're here to smell. Each bundle of cloth is a past. One smells like the breast straps of a noblewoman, thick with rose water, but aged into something drier, faintly woody. Another smells like camel sweat, soaked into it through weeks of desert travel. You press it to your nose and almost gag. It's musky, raw, and full of something alive and half rotted. But even that smell is honest. You respect it. The seller doesn't stop you. In fact, he finally moves slowly and unrolls a thin bolt from the back shelf himself. You don't speak. You just lean closer. This one smells like burnt frankincense and salt, like temple cloth, like something holy and sharp, the kind of fabric that would be used to wrap bones or prayers. You don't ask the price. You don't even want it. You just needed to know what it remembered. You step back from the bolt, and suddenly, the tent feels like a library where the books are made of fabric, and the ink is made of lives. Outside, the spice seller is shouting again. A child drops a bowl. A monkey screams. But you're still half inside the in scented silence, where cloth is measured not just in width or weave, but in what it once held close. You exit without a word. The seller nods once. That's enough. And as you breathe back into the world of camel fat and fish oil, of broken pottery and cracked garlic skins, the linen smell stays on your fingers. You lift them to your nose like a secret, but that is a story for tomorrow night. Op Chahin to Ab Main Part 8 Lick, uncalm, immersive, and again centered on smell in a different corner of the ancient market. Tay, Yar, you said. Next chat GPT said. Part 8 of the lost smells of ancient markets from camel fat to crushed roses. 1,500-1, 700 words second. Person POV calm immersive smell entered sleep. Inducing no image prompts. As per your request, all storytelling rules followed. Part 8, the oil merchant who burned worm. Would you reach him before the sun does? The oil merchant. His canopy is still draped shut, a faded cloth the color of overused turmeric. It hangs heavy with last night's dew, trembling slightly in the preed. On hush, you do not call out, you wait. Because you know what's coming. There is no scent like his in the whole market. Not even the spice sellers of the Western Court, with their cinnamon, smoke, and salted anise, can match what he burns. The oil merchant lights his brazier every morning at the same time, and every morning it begins the same way, with the cracking of dry stalks, a long hiss of moisture dying, and then the smell of burned wormwood. Not fresh, not floral, not friendly. It hits like a memory from a fevered dream, smoky, bitter, medicinal, but strangely clean like the inside of a monk's sleeve. You breathe it in slowly. At first, your throat tightens. But then your nose adjusts. The harshness fades, and all that's left is a silence behind your eyes. Some say wormwood drives away spirits. Some say it draws them closer. You're not sure which version is true. But you stay anyway, watching as the old man slides out from under the canopy and nods without a word. He doesn't greet you. No one does at this hour. His oils are not perfumes. They are cures. Tiny bottles of thick, slow, moving gold, lined up in wooden trays. He has ones for muscle pain, others for toothaches. A few are for women's cramps and children's coughs. But these are not what you come for. You wait for him to bring out the dark flask, the one sealed with wax and a string so thin it looks like it could break on breath. This one isn't for sale. It is something he lets you smell, but only when the air is still and only when he decides you need it. He doesn't speak, but today he motions, just once. You kneel beside the brazier. He peels the wax away and uncorks the bottle. What escapes is not a smell, it's a warning, like old burnt sugar underfoot, like the inside of a tree struck by lightning, like something that used to be sweet and now won't speak of it. You know what it is. Tamarisk resin mixed with boiled ox marrow. It was once used to anoint royal corpses in the northern kingdoms, preserved the skin, hid the stench, gave the illusion of life, even when nothing living remained beneath. You flinch even though you've smelled it before. The oil merchant chuckles. An old wind through dry leaves. He recorks it and slides it back under the table. Your eyes water a little. You don't wipe them. By now, the sun has crested the rooftops and the wormwood fire is burning low. The smell has shifted, now mixed with the acrid tang of heated iron. He's begun placing the bronze pans for warming his bottles. You help him stack small stones around the edges of the flame, building little cradles for glass that must not boil. He doesn't thank you. He never does. That is not the rhythm here. Instead, he hands you something. A cloth damp and cold. You press it to your face. It smells like old camphor and shaved sandalwood, and you nearly sigh aloud. The world calms. Your shoulders fall. The market begins to awaken, but you remain here, in this small corner of time that never fully belongs to morning. There are other smells now. The fruit seller next door is slicing open a bruised melon. A donkey has relieved itself somewhere behind the copper alley. Steam rises from the first pot of mung bean porridge at the breakfast stall. You catch all of it, but still the wormwood clings. Burned wormwood, king, how they call it, has many uses. It heals fevers, wards off insects, and once, you were told, it was burned outside a prison window the night before an execution, to make the condemned man sleep more deeply. You ask the oil merchant if that's true. He doesn't answer, but his eyes narrow in a way that means yes. Later, as you rise to leave, he presses something into your palm, a folded scrap of parchment. You nod, take it, and step away from the stall. It smells faintly of old citrus and mint, not fresh, but the ghost of something once sharp and bright. You unfold it when you reach the edge of the market, just before the fishmonger's barrel stench overtakes you. Inside is a pressed bundle of mugwort leaves tied with a hair. Thin copper wire, no message, no price, just the smell. You don't ask what it's for. You just keep it in your pocket, where your skin can remember it. And that night, when the wind changes and the dogs howl against the wall, you will hold it to your nose and know. Some smells protect you. Some smells warn you, and some smells simply remember when no one else dares to. You don't know the name of this place. Maybe no one ever did. Even the tax collectors walked past it faster. Even the guards tilted their helmets forward and their noses up, as if that would spare them the shame of smelling it. And yet, here you are, guided by the slow, burning memory of scent, deeper than curiosity, heavier than disgust. There are no signs, just a greasy wooden arch, blackened by years of smoke and fumes, leaning tiredly against a crumbling wall. The stones beneath your feet are stained the color of tea, not fresh tea, but something oversteeped, bitter, long abandoned. With every step, a new note of scent seems to wake up from the cracks in the ground. Ammonia, rot, sour leather. It punches you in the eyes before it reaches your nose. The alley was never designed for breathing, but this, too, was a market, not for silks or cinnamon, not for music or spices. No camel bells ring here, no coins clink, only the quiet shuffle of bare, wet feet and buckets, so many buckets, you try not to look too closely. Every wooden pail on the roadside seems to shimmer with dampness. Some are covered with frayed cloth, others left wide open to the sun, and inside them, human urine, some fresh, some days old, all collected by hand, not waste, product. You wouldn't have believed it, except here you are, walking between urine vendors, men with sharp noses and dull eyes who buy and sell human piss like it's olive oil or grain. And the smell, it's not just one smell. It changes as you walk. Some buckets are sour and sharp, others sweet and musky. You realize each scent reflects what the person ate, or how sick they were. This one smells like overripe dates. That one smells like meat gone wrong. Another has the hollow, coppery sting of blood. And somewhere between all those buckets and barrels, the urine collectors themselves sit on low wooden stools, smoking cheap tobacco and arguing about pH levels as if they're discussing wine. Good piss today, one of them mutters, swishing a ladle in a cloudy bucket. Had a merchant come through, drank nothing but rosewater, smelled like a brothel in spring. His neighbor snorts, ain't no piss like soldier piss. You can tan leather with it straight, no diluting. They laugh and you flinch, because it's not a joke. They do tan leather with it. They bleach linen, they soften wool. In every corner of this alley, ammonia is a tool, a solvent, a cleanser. You watch a young boy tip a clay jar of morning urine into a large stone basin. His face is expressionless. He could be pouring tea. A woman beside him stirs the mixture with a flat wooden paddle. She hums as she works, unbothered by the flies. You want to ask her something, anything. But then a gust of wind hits and the scent turns hot, like old onions mashed into sun, baked copper, and you gag. The woman smiles, not unkindly. You'll get used to it. She says, voice like gravel soaked in honey. The smell teaches you patience. In another life that might have been a proverb, but here it's instruction, because those who survive this alley don't run from the smell. They read it, they learn its layers. They can tell the difference between rich man's piss and poor man's, between sickness and health, between young and old. A skilled collector can smell kidney failure 3 days before a physician notices the swelling. You hear them say it. The body speaks first through scent. You begin to believe them. Toward the far end of the alley, the smell evolves. It thickens, deepens. It smells of wet parchment left in a library's basement, of moldy orange peels, of metal coins sucked on too long. You round the corner and find the dyers. Here, the urine is mixed with indigo dust, crushed gall nuts, chalk, shaved copper filings. Linen is submerged in vats of liquid that look like spoiled soup, then pulled out shimmering with new color, purples, blues, murky reds that would have been impossible without weeks of fermentation. One dyer lifts a bolt of fabric from a vat. The color drips from it like old blood. He breathes in the steam with a kind of religious focus. Perfect, he says to no one. The smell tells me it's ready. You step closer, holding your breath. The cloth in his hands is beautiful. Regal, fit for queens, but it was born from the stench of human waste. You sit on a stone bench near the edge of the dye yard. The air is dense with the smell of vinegar, of mildew, of something sweet and rancid at once, like a fig forgotten in a soldier's boot. And yet, it no longer repulses you. You realize something else. This smell is part of the city. It's part of its veins, its breath, its dreams. Without this alley, there would be no fine cloth, no clean walls, no softened leather, no colored silks. You look around at the quiet workers, the murmured trades, the steaming vats, the ignored children, and realize this is the foundation, not the palaces, not the temples, not the perfumer's stall. This, the smell of human waste turned into survival, transformation, art, and once you know that, once your body accepts that truth, the stink softens, the air feels heavier, yes, but not hostile. It becomes a kind of warmth, a shared human heat, a reminder that even the foulest things can be turned, slowly, patiently, through laboring, to something that holds value, something that lasts. Far down the alley, you spot a cart loaded with sealed clay jars. They're being shipped to the perfumer's quarter. One is labeled Rosewater Filtrate, another Elderberry Night Sample, a third simply Royal Blend. You don't know who bottled them. You don't want to know. But you understand now. The smell of this alley isn't a mistake. It's an ingredient, a process, a record of the living. You breathe it in again, this time not with revulsion, but with respect. And as your eyes flutter with the weight of the day, and your breath slows, you hear one last whisper drifting up from the vats. Everything changes form, child, even you. And you wonder what will your smell say when you're gone. You're not sure what wakes you first. The heat of the morning sun climbing the back of your neck, or the faint, confusing scent of something both delicious and rotten tangled in the air. Your legs ache. You've fallen asleep on a grain sack again, curled like a shrimp beside a cracked wall, and your mouth tastes like last night's rainwater. But even before your eyes open, your nose twitches, because there is something in the market this morning that shouldn't be here. Something that smells like burned cinnamon, like cardamom seeds left too long in the sun, like clove smoke soaked in bile, and something else, something. Human, you open your eyes, he's already here. The spice seller with the rotting nose. You've never dared to ask his name. No one has. He doesn't speak to anyone, not with words. His tongue was cut out long ago in some faraway prison, people say. Somewhere across the salt deserts, where cinnamon trees bend like old men in justice, is a game played with iron tongs. But he sells spices. Or, rather, he lays them out, as if they are pieces of himself. You've seen how he arranges them, with care, with ritual, with a strange twitch in his shoulder that he never seems to notice. He sits cross-legged on a mat of camel hair, and one by one unwraps each clay bowl from layers of palm, leaf cloth soaked in rose water, and then he breathes. He breathes in their scent, frankincense, dried galangal root, powdered nutmeg, as if drawing in memory itself. As if the scent is the only language he still knows. His nose is half gone. It's hard to describe, not missing, not flat, just melting like softened beeswax that has dripped too close to fire. The skin around it is the color of old figs. Black in places, cracked. Sometimes, if you're too close, you can smell him too beneath the turmeric and the sandalwood. There's a deep, yeasty rot, like old bandages, like damp millet grain turning to mush. But still his customers come, because what he sells no one else dares to carry. He doesn't yell like the date vendors. He doesn't clap like the onion women. He doesn't smile. Instead, he holds out his small clay bowls in both hands, one by one, and waits. You've seen it happen. A rich woman in silk who turns her face away in disgust, but then leans closer despite herself, because something in his bowl smells like a palace floor after rain, or the palace kitchen, maybe, or a memory of childhood, or fear, because it's not just spices he sells. No, he sells power. You creep closer, your bare feet making small scuffs in the dust. He doesn't notice, or maybe he does. His good eye twitches once. There are 9 bowls laid out already, and you know each one by scent. Saffron threads, bitter and metallic like dried blood, powdered star anise, sweet as licorice left in fire, cuba pepper, sharp and cold like a slap on wet skin ash from dried orchid roots, used in aphrodisiacs, crushed myrrh. With that half-holy, half-flesh-smell mace, warm and oily smoked fenugreek, sticky in the back of your throat green coriander seed, light as a dream, and finally, the one no one buys, a dark powder smelling of rot, wet feathers, and grave incense. It's the one he keeps at the edge of his mat. And it always draws flies. No one knows where he gets these things. Some say he walks the southern trade road once every moon cycle. Others say his brother was a priest, and he stole these scents from the temple's locked pantry, a place where even names rot in stone. But whatever the truth, his powders work. You've seen the results. The old soldier who couldn't sleep, whose daughter ground one of the seller's nutmegs into his beer, and now dreams only of oceans. The bride who whispered of fear, who smeared clove oil on her wrists, and now her husband treats her like a ghost queen, and the prince's eunuch. You were there that day. It was the kind of morning when the sky smells like copper. The eunuch arrived with silk shoes and a scowl, his lip curled like he'd just walked through fish guts. He didn't speak, just pointed at the seller's wares and dropped a silver coin into the mat. The seller didn't flinch. He reached, so slowly, and chose the bowl of cubeb pepper. Then, with one long fingernail, he scraped a small pile into the eunuch's hand. The eunuch sniffed, his eyes widened, and he left. The next day, rumors spread that the prince had suddenly wept during a public speech, cried for his dead mother, whom no one had seen him mention in a decade. The eunuch was seen again 3 days later, smelling of camphor and panic. That day the spice seller sold out before noon, and now he's watching you. You didn't mean to catch his eye, but you're too close. You've been inhaling his smells like a thief. He picks up the bowl of myrrh and offers it to you. Your heart skips. He wants you to hold it. You reach out with shaking fingers, and suddenly the scent is all around you, sweet and dark and thick, like the inside of a priest's robes, like funeral smoke. Like your mother's hands when she used to press them over your eyes to help you sleep. You blink. He tilts his head, almost like a question. You nod. He hands you the bowl. No one's ever handed you anything without asking for coin. But the spice seller just places the bowl into your palms. It's heavier than it looks. You realize. His hands tremble slightly when they pull away, and you see, close up now, that his skin is covered in burned scars. Old ones, pale as ash. He reaches into a pouch at his side and pulls out a small linen twist. He unties it. Inside, a fine white powder, almost like flour, but you know better. He takes a pinch, sprinkles it into the bowl of myrrh. Then he lifts a charcoal shard from a tiny brazier at his side and drops it in. Whoomph! The bowl exhales smoke like a dying god. You breathe it in, and it's like falling through time. You smell a river at dusk, your father's old boots, bread made by hands that no longer exist. You smell the truth and the rot and the sweetness and the ache. You don't even realize you're crying until the tears hit your thumb. When you finally hand back the bowl, he nods once, no words, no coins. But he tucks something into your sleeve, another small linen pouch, and turns away. You open it once you're safely behind the onion stalls. Just a pinch of white powder, and a shard of something black and hard, like dried beetle shell. You lift it to your nose. It smells like a secret you haven't remembered yet, but that is a story for tomorrow night. You wake to the sound of someone hissing at you, not a snake, not even a threat, just a woman with sun, leathered cheeks, and an apron made of silkworm husks. She's standing over you with a bundle of thread in one hand and a stale rice cake in the other. She doesn't blink. You blink twice for both of you. She doesn't ask if you're awake. She asks if you can smell it. Not the rice cake, not her sweat-soaked scarf, but that she points toward the far edge of the bazaar where the silk makers unroll their cocoons in giant wicker baskets. And sure enough, you smell it. It is faint, damp, sweet, but only if you know what rot tastes like wet hay left too long in the sun, like a crushed petal at the bottom of a hot boot. Silk, when it's still a worm's home, smells like hope that's gone bad. You pull yourself up, legs aching from yesterday's labor. The stall awnings above you ripple slightly, and a fresh wave of that silks. Smell floats through old jasmine, boiled leaves, something vaguely animal. You don't hate it, but you don't want to smell it for too long either. It's the kind of scent that sticks to your lips like a lie. The woman tells you that the worms are boiled alive. They have to be, or else the silk threads will snap when the moth tries to escape. You don't ask whether she minds. You can see that she doesn't. Her hands are stained in colors the worms would never recognize. She gestures again, to the next stall over. There, a boy about your age is kneeling in front of a vat of crushed persimmon and goat urine, using a long stick to stir thread through it like soup. His nose barely rises above the edge. You watch him wince every few breaths. The dye stings more than it smells, but still, it smells, sharp, bitter, like copper and compost and boy, who'd gone wrong. You shift your weight and move on. You've only now realized that this market is older than you thought. The stones beneath your feet are rounded smooth from centuries of sandals. The smells have layered themselves like sediment, pressed down and reborn through heat. Every few steps, a different era climbs into your nostrils. A pile of sandalwood shavings, crisp and dry, sacred. Sweet a cracked bowl of musk oil, sticky and brown as dried blood, a rotting heap of discarded lotus pods, all wet rot and lake. Thick mold, and then, oddest of all, a man selling only wind. He sits on a mat of cold sheep's wool and fans himself with a bronze disc. When you pass, he lifts a cloth toward your face and says, "Smell the highlands." You do. It smells like stone and altitude and very old snow. He smiles, tucks the cloth back into a gourd, and says nothing more. You try to ask where he got it. He just raises an eyebrow and points upward, not to the mountains, to the sky. You leave him behind because your stomach is louder than your curiosity. Hunger does that. It makes you care less about mystery and more about cooked rice and spiced lentils. That's how you find yourself pressed between two frying carts, the left one selling onion cakes, the right one grinding fermented bean paste into flatbreads. Together, they form a kind of olfactory prison. The onion cakes smell like courage and resentment. That is, oil left too long, the tang of half, burnt batter, and the sweet sting of leeks torn too soon from dry soil. The bean paste, on the other hand, smells like everything your body tries to forget. Earthy, fungal, so deeply bitter that even flies hesitate, and yet the cue to eat them snakes halfway down the row. You breathe through your sleeve and move on. Not far away, there's a stall that shouldn't be open yet. It's the rose merchant, and her petals are laid out in shallow silver bowls. This is the first beautiful smell of the morning. You lean closer, eyes fluttering at the weight of it. Crushed roses, not dried, not perfumed, just crushed. The petals are pink, cream, blood, red, gold, and bruised mauve. Some are already dark at the edges. And they smell like every memory you're not old enough to have yet, like the inside of a love letter sealed too long, like wedding nights and widowhood all at once. You dare not touch them. She dares you too. You don't realize your thumb has dipped into the pulp until it's too late. You pull it back and press it to your nose, and for one suspended moment, you don't smell the market at all, just the roses. Just the memory of something soft and necessary. But a second later, the wind shifts and the bazaar reminds you where you are. A pile of camel fat candles has begun to melt in the sun. That smell cuts through everything, greasy, burnt, heavy as regret. A meat smoke smell that drips down your throat and settles like grief in your chest. You double over a little and cough. The rose merchant clicks her tongue. You're not the first to gag, won't be the last. From across the alley, someone is slicing open a pomegranate, and it's sour. Metallic sweetness rides the air like a perfume trying to be a dagger. And somewhere near the far stalls, someone's dropped a basket of durian. That's enough. You step away, past the silk, past the dyes, past the meat and flowers and milk and fish, and even the monk selling sandalwood ashes in wax paper. You find a seat near a basin where cloth is rinsed in water, boiled with cinnamon, bark, and orange peel. The water steams quietly. You inhale deeply and try to forget everything else. For a while, you do. Just spice, just warmth, just stillness. But of course, that's not how markets work. Not here. Not ever. A child runs by holding a basket of fermented tofu, and the smell punches the air like a ghost of something unspeakable. You can see people step aside instinctively. You do too, and then, unexpectedly, a donkey cart trundles past, carrying a load of freshly cut bamboo. It smells like green rain, like morning, like forgiveness. You almost cry. You almost follow it out of the market. But your feet don't move because the market has you now. Not just your body, not just your wallet, but your nose. It knows your nose, and it knows you'll be back for one more breath of silk and sweat and sweetness, for another chance to smell the world before it forgets how to stink. You pass under a blackened arch, its stones hot from the sun. The sound changes here, quieter, more muffled, as if the air itself thickens with ash. This is where fire lives, where the ancient craft of potters curls upward in coils of smoke and steaming earth. You step deeper into the lane, and your nostrils sting. The first smell is soot, not just the kind from a hearth, but the deep, living soot that's born from months of firing clay in narrow kilns. It sits in the cracks of walls, in the folds of robes, in the eyebrows of the potters themselves. It smells like time gone hard and black. Then the heat strikes you, not the sun. This is older heat, earth, heat. It radiates from beneath the ground, from fire, fed kilns that haven't cooled in days. The cobbles feel warm even through your sandals. The air tastes metallic. You pass rows of jars, some glazed, some raw, some stacked like sleeping soldiers. The raw ones hold their own smell, that of wet clay, damp and musky like riverbanks in spring. Each is shaped by hands you can hear slapping, pinching, smoothing. A boy, shirtless, steps out from behind a vat. His arms are gray with dust, his face freckled with ash. He carries a tray of figurines, little lions, gods, cows. He doesn't speak. His breath makes a cloud of powdered earth when he exhales. You move past him to the dyeing bowls, not the vibrant colors of the cloth merchants, but mineral stains, copper green, iron red, cobalt blue. They sit in shallow dishes, evaporating slowly. They smell bitter and sharp, like crushed stone and vinegar. Further in the kiln, Master is barking. His voice is hoarse, the kind of voice that's baked as much as spoken. He's cursing a crack in a large amphora. You glance inside the kiln only briefly. The glow hurts your eyes. White orange like the inside of a lightning bolt. Even your ears seem to burn. The whistle of the fire, the hissing of glaze as it bubbles and sets. The thump of hands on clay, it becomes rhythmic. Sleepy, almost, like a lullaby sung by earth and fire. There is a smell beneath it all. Something subtle, the smell of old sweat soaked into linen, of oil, slicked beards, of singed eyebrows and scorched sandals. It's the smell of men and women who live beside flame. A woman walks past with a bowl of water balanced on her hip. She tips it over a drying slab of clay, and the steam rises instantly. Sweet, brief, ghostly. You sit for a moment in the shadow of the tallest kiln. The wall behind you is warm. You close your eyes. There is no breeze, no birds, no voices anymore. Only the fire, the clay, and the smell of a trade older than empires. You drift, but that is a story for tomorrow night. You wake to the soft scrape of salt under your nails. That's what rouses you, not the cries of vendors, not the muffled bray of a mule being struck, not even the high whistle of wind curling down the alley. It's that faint, familiar grit beneath your fingertips, as if your dreams have crusted over with sea, foam and old brine. You curl your hands, rub your palms against your rough tunic, but the salt stays. Clinging, you sit up in your woven mat bed, tucked between sacks of grain and a cracked oil jug. The market is already alive outside, but dimly. The heavy cloth flaps in front of the stall, half drawn. Light seeps in like honey, slow and golden, slanting through the spice. Sweet dust. You blink, you stretch, you breathe in. Salt, it fills your nose before anything else. Before the charcoal fires, before the vinegar pots, before the sour sweat of the neighboring fishmonger's boy. It is this dry, choking, beautiful salt that defines your world this morning. Your mother's voice murmurs from beyond the curtain, counting. She's sorting blocks of pressed salt by hand again, the thick rectangular slabs shaved from distant salt pans and shipped in by mule. Their corners glint pale in the sun, as if they might melt, but they won't. Not here, not in this dry, cold desert air. You push aside the curtain, and there she is, the salt seller's daughter Your mother, her hands are white. Her fingernails have cracked from years of packing, scraping, weighing. Her skin, once honey, brown, is bleached pale along the knuckles, speckled with small white burns where she once poured salt into wet wounds, yours included. She hums under her breath as she stacks slabs along the wooden trestle. You recognize the tune a lullaby from when you were very small. It has no words, only salt remembers them. You reach for a block, ready to help. She slaps your hand, not hard, just enough. Don't lift the ones with white crusts, she says. That's alkali, it burns the eyes. You nod, you don't answer. You never really speak in the morning. Instead, you follow her silent choreography block, wrap, bind, stamp. You press the carved brand into each cloth bundle, a half. Circle sun over waves. The mark of the guild that owns your stall. Your mother is not technically allowed to sell under her own name, but she does, quietly, with coins slipped beneath the edge of the counting scales. A fly lands on your wrist. Another buzzes near your ear. Salt stalls attract them, not because of the salt itself, but because of what salt preserves meat mostly, salted organs, dried strips of lung and liver. Your mother once traded with a caravan guard who swore by salted camel heart. Ate it with dates, said it kept him alive when his horse collapsed. You slap the flies away. One of them doesn't leave. It crawls to your elbow, wings twitching, legs sticky. Its body is too fat, its color too bright. And then you hear it, the whine, not from the fly, from him the merchant of flies. He limps down the lane like a beggar, shoulders hunched beneath a wide reed hat. You recognize him by sound before sight. His cart squeaks with every step wood warped, wheels uneven, but it's not the cart that makes you shiver. It's the buzzing. He keeps them in cages, dozens, maybe hundreds, little woven cages hung from the edge of his cart, filled with writhing black dots. He trades them to the perfume stalls, the garbage boys, even physicians. Some say fly wings can be ground into salves. Others just burn them in censers to keep worse insects away. He stops at your stall. Your mother goes still. The man does not look up. His mouth moves beneath the hat, thin lips speaking numbers, prices, predictions. You glance at the cart. One of the cages is open. You stare at it. There's something else inside, not a fly, a piece of cloth, stained red. You feel your stomach turn. The man lifts his hat just enough to meet your eyes. Salt for blood. He rasps. Your mother answers before you can. No trade today. The man lingers. The flies around his shoulders shift like smoke. One lands on your cheek. You do not move. Suit yourself. The man mutters, but blood finds its way to salt. Always. He leaves. Your mother waits until the sound of the squeaking cart fades. Then she speaks low and careful. Never follow that man, never answer him, and never ask what's in the cages. You nod. You don't need to ask. The salt under your nails tells you more than enough. You return to the bundles. You stack them in silence, but something has shifted in the day. The sun is higher. The salt glows whiter, and in the distance you can still hear the faintest hum like wings. Or whispers and tomorrow. You will pass by the blood alley, but that is a story for tomorrow night. You thought you'd smelled it all by now, but this is something older, stranger. It hits you as you pass through a covered archway, ducking beneath pale cloth strung between wooden beams. This part of the market is cooler, damper, a place where shadows stretch longer, where the scents grow heavier, more secretive. And here they come, like ghosts, pickled tongues, fermented milk, dried stomachs folded like paper, and salted organs in baskets lined with fig leaves. You slow your steps. It's not a place for children to linger, but you linger anyway. A man to your left flips a cow's tongue in brine. The sound is thick. The smell, sharply sour, with a note of old iron makes your teeth ache. He is humming as if he is boiling roses, not tongues, as if this corner of the world does not reek of lactic rot and offal. You breathe through your mouth, then regret it. The taste is worse than the scent. A film of fermented curd coats the air. Someone nearby is shaving curls off a hardened block of goat's cheese, aged until its edges have cracked and wept oils. The cheese is blue in places, green in others. It smells like a damp stone cellar. A woman squats beside a stack of sealed jars, their contents pale and mysterious. You see glistening ovals, testicles, perhaps, floating in something viscous and pink. They shift when the jar is nudged. A child beside her points at one, laughing, until the woman slaps the back of his head. You've long stopped laughing at things like that. Instead, you look closer. You always do. There's a stall that draws you in with its quietness. No shouting, no haggling, just the low murmur of cutting and sorting. The woman here has a table covered in sheep stomachs, washed, scraped, dried, then folded into tight little pouches. She opens one and shows a buyer what's inside. Salt, dried dates, minced garlic, and a crushed beetle that turns the paste a startling red. You've eaten it before, not often, but you remember it. The tartness, the way the fermented milk curdled the dates just slightly, the way it smelled like sour thunder. You weren't supposed to enjoy it. It had been a bet, a dare, a stolen moment behind a merchant's stall. But you'd liked it too much, and now the memory makes your stomach growl. The woman notices you, doesn't speak, just nods once. You do not nod back. This is the unspoken rule of children like you. You can watch, but not stay. You can breathe it in, but not ask, and certainly not taste. So you drift again, past the barrels of preserved fish guts, past the hanging cords of dried intestines that look like ropes for dolls, past the baskets of crushed herbs meant to mask the smell of decay, but only make it stranger. There is a man who sells soured mare's milk by the cup. You once thought it was sweet. You were wrong. It's tart and thin and fizzes slightly on your tongue, like something still alive, but it's cold. And cleaner than most water. You watch two soldiers buy a cup each, their fingers thick around the delicate clay bowls. One of them spills a drop on his armor. The sour milk sizzles faintly. You wonder if that was the milk or the armor. Behind them, a boy holds up a skinned animal. Rat, rabbit, something in between. It is bloodless, salted, hung on a thin iron hook beside pickled bird hearts and something gelatinous wrapped in vine leaves. This market is not cruel. It simply has no room for softness. Every smell is a kind of warning, a story, a memory of rot that was interrupted by salt, of meat that might have spoiled if not for vinegar, smoke, or prayer. And you, barefoot and too quiet, are just another shadow among shadows. You do not belong here, and yet you do. The pickled things do not speak, but if they could, they might say, "We too were almost forgotten." And perhaps you'd nod, because you know what it means to survive just a little too long. But that is a story for tomorrow night. You hold your breath before you turn the corner. Even from here, the sting creeps into your eyes, acrid, sharp, like vinegar left too long in a copper pot. You've smelled many things in this ancient market, but this one clings to your nostrils and refuses to let go. It is the dyer's, again. You step carefully, not because of crowds, there are none near the dye vats, but because the stones beneath your feet are slick with runoff. Liquid the color of old bruises, purples and greens and browns, trickles from wooden basins. The indigo pool, largest of them all, is covered in a faint skin-like soup left to cool. A single footstep would stain your toes for weeks, but that isn't what makes people avoid this alley. It is the reek. Because before there is color, there is urine. Human, animal, mostly collected from chamber pots and public latrines, stored in barrels left to stew beneath the sun. You pass a boy with dyed hands and red, rimmed eyes, no older than 12, stirring a wooden pole in a vat the size of a donkey cart. The stench wafts upward in oily layers. Urine ferments, breaks down urea into ammonia, and the result, pungent, sharp, relentless, is what binds color to clothes. You wonder if the boy has stopped noticing. He doesn't flinch as his hand brushes a splash of blue liquid. He doesn't look up. His hair is streaked with sweat and dye. A songbird nearby stops chirping as the wind changes. Even animals seem to detour. His master sits beneath a faded awning. An old woman, skin darkened not by sun, but by decades of handling indigo. Her fingertips are permanently violet. She eats a small bowl of lentils without blinking, as if she were seated beside a garden. The boy stirs again. You watch the fabric sink into the vat, a dull gray rag at first, but as it emerges, it blooms. Indigo meets oxygen, and suddenly the cloth is royal, defiant, almost holy in its hue. There's a moment of magic, just a moment, and then the wind shifts again. The cloth is thrown over a hemp rope to dry, joining dozens of others' scarves, tunics, sashes, even funeral shrouds, all stiff, all drenched in yesterday's piss. You glance back at the boy. He wipes his face with a sleeve and keeps stirring. You want to leave, but your sandals slip slightly, and you catch yourself on the edge of a vat. The liquid inside shimmers like oil. Beneath the surface, you see your own face, smudged tired, tinted slightly blue. You leave quietly, but you linger. There is something solemn here, something ancient. The blood of animals, the craft of death, the knowledge passed down not in scrolls, but through the wrist and the blade. It is not cruelty. It is survival. The boy has started humming. The butcher splits the ribs with one clean strike. You step lightly over the slickest stone, and you leave the alley behind. But that is a story for tomorrow night. You wake before dawn. It's not the light that wakes you, it's the scent. Your nose prickles before your eyes even open. Something thick and sharp clings to your throat. You cough gently, and when you rise to your elbows, you see the smoke. It curls under the silk flap of your tent, blue, gray in the dimness. You think for a moment the campfire must have been left burning, but no, this isn't wood smoke. It smells of resin, of clove, of bitter roots, scorched and black. You rise slowly, sand is in your lashes. You slept on your side again, the mat too thin. Your shoulders ache, your knees crack as you stand, but the smoke draws you. You wrap your scarf around your mouth and push the flap aside. And there it is, the perfumer's tent, burning. It should have been a place of grace. The perfumer, a thin man with henna-stained fingers, was known across 5 regions. He'd arrived just days ago, trailing donkeys heavy with clay jars, storax, saffron oil, frankincense, cedar, myrrh, vetiver, and rose. You'd seen his booth the day before. He had little golden spoons, tiny charcoal pans, stone bowls for crushing musk. But today only ruin. The tent collapses in on itself with a gentle sigh, and that is when the scent hits you fully. Your legs go soft. You catch the post beside you. It is the most beautiful and horrible thing you have ever smelled. Not a fire of wood, not a fire of dung, not even the rough tar, pitch they sometimes use to seal broken baskets. This fire carries centuries. You smell kingdoms. You smell sacrifices. You smell the oil pressed from lilies that no longer bloom. You step closer, forgetting your place. Others are there, a baker's daughter, a grain porter, 2 sisters from the weaving tent. All drawn to the edge of the perfumer's ruin. One by one, they speak the names of things they remember. Labdanum, cypress leaf, camphor, dragon's blood. The last one is whispered. You don't know the names. But you know the memory they bring. You are 6 again. Your mother is brushing oil into her braids. You are 15 again, and a traveler kisses your cheek, smelling of spice and rain. You are old, older than you are now, and someone lays linen over your chest and says, "Sleep." The smoke carries time, and then the scent shifts. It begins to choke. What was sacred becomes sharp. The sweetness twists. Someone screams. You fall back as the fire belches a greenish plume. Whatever oils had remained in sealed jars must have burst, and with them, a potion of chemical ghosts. You reel. Tears streak your face, and suddenly the memory is not yours. You smell a Roman temple, a funeral in a city you've never seen. You smell the dying breath of a prince crushed by elephants. You smell perfume stolen from a lover's corpse. This is no longer a fire. It is history burning. They carry water, sand, but it's too late. The perfumer, if he lived, is gone. Some say they saw him running, robes in flames. Others say he lit it himself. Why would a man burn his life's beauty? You do not know. But long after the ashes cool, the scent remains. It lives in your scarf. It stains the threads of your tunic. It hides in the creases of your palm. You press your fingers to your nose each night before bed, and you remember. You have followed a sweetness down winding alleys before, but never quite like this. The air here is thick not only with the scent of honey, but something older, something heavier. Something fermented in the sun, buried beneath years of forgotten summers. The walls around you shimmer faintly, slick with humidity, and the sweetness curls into your nose until your head feels fogged with it. A boy with honey, slicked hands blinks at you from a corner stall. His fingers are stained amber, stuck to everything he touches. He waves at you, then disappears behind a hanging net of beeswax candles, each one crooked hand, poured and pale as goat milk. You step past waxy effigies and ash, smeared burners, through air buzzing with flies and memory. The honey cellar is somewhere deeper in the tent. You can hear the soft schloop of something being stirred. You can smell the sticky rot of spoiled combs. And then she emerges, not old, not young. Her veil is yellowed, her robe is damp at the sleeves. Her wrists drip with honey like bangles, and when she opens her mouth, her teeth gleam golden, not with metal, but with glaze. "Come in, little bee," she says. "You're late for your turning." You don't know what that means. She pulls back a curtain made of twisted flower stalks. Behind it, the tent opens into a round chamber. There is no roof, just sky and flies, and something suspended in netting above a series of old clay urns, dripping slowly into bowls lined with rose leaves. This is where we steep the memory, she says. You sit cross-legged beside a steaming vessel. She places a slice of honeycomb on your tongue, and it doesn't taste like anything sweet. It tastes like fever. The honey seller explains nothing, but speaks as if you have always belonged here. The wax, she says, isn't only for candles. It seals letters, protects cuts, preserves teeth. She points to a small wooden tray. On it lie 3 human molars, neatly capped with golden beeswax and wrapped in linen. People come to me when they're about to die, she says, or when they've lost someone, or when they want to forget. Forget what? That's what the honeys know. You begin to notice how many bees there are here. Not swarming, but resting in the folds of fabric, in the grooves of old mortars, between your toes. Every jar has a different flavor: bitter broom blossom, sunce, scorched orange rind, lavender from graveside gardens. But these aren't for eating. They're memories trapped in sweetness. She sells them to women who have lost their children, to men who forget the names of their mothers, to midwives, to mourners, to murderers. Each memory, she says, ferments differently. Some turn bitter, some glow gold, some buzz even when sealed. At sunset, she shows you her ledger. It's a cracked wooden tablet wrapped in parchment. Each line marks a trade: 2 ounces broom honey for forgetting a drowned husband, half vial indigo wax for preserving a name during labor, a spoon of stinging nettle honey for remembering a daughter's face before illness, and 1 line, uncategorized, full comb, night harvest for silence after blood. You run your finger along that line. The ink smells faintly of clove. She says nothing. Later, she wraps your hands in beeswax and mint oil. Says it will help you sleep. You believe her. You're tired in a way you can't quite explain, not in your bones, but behind your eyes. And when you close them, your dreams are thick with syrup and the sound of wings. In the morning, the tent is gone. No trace of honey, no bees, no netting. Just a faint, sweet smell left behind on your skin. But that is a story for tomorrow night. You return to the quietest corner of the market, not the kind where perfume smoke coils upward in ribbons of light, nor where bakers clang their trays and fruit, sellers yell their prayers. No, this place is quieter. The steam rises differently here, not in bursts or chaotic jets, but in a slow exhale, curling from old clay kettles perched atop blackened stoves. The air smells of charred bark, boiled leaves, and something gentler, something green. You sit. A wooden bench, 1 leg shorter than the others, tilts beneath you like an old boat. Across from you, the tea. Eller's hands move like breath, slow, precise, reverent. She pours nothing in haste. Each clay cup is warmed before the water meets it. Each motion is measured by memory. She does not look at you, but somehow you feel seen. Behind her, brass pots rattle gently on the coals, and hanging from thin wires, bundles of dried flowers twist lazily in the smoke. Lavender, bitter orange peel, osmanthus, astringent, dry notes clinging to the rafters above. She doesn't speak. You don't either. Instead, she slides a small bowl toward you, a yellow tea, cloudy as broth. You hesitate, then sip, and everything else falls away. You taste earth before anything else. Wet forest, floor kind of earth, then roasted bamboo leaves, then a sweetness that's not sugar, but memory, a scent that once floated through your grandmother's garden on a spring morning. You don't ask what's in it. She wouldn't answer if you did. Instead, you lean back and let it warm you. The steam rises into your eyelashes. A boy nearby coughs. A lantern flares and dims. Outside, carts groan by. But none of it reaches this pocket of stillness. Here, memory brews more than tea. The tease, Eller begins humming. It's not a song exactly, more like a breath that loops, like a thread through fabric. It sounds like something lost. You don't recognize it, but it makes your bones ache softly. She places a second cup near your hand. This one is darker, richer, more bitter. It tastes like bark and ash and something old. You sip it slower. She glances up once. Her eyes are foggy but sharp beneath, as if they remember you even if she doesn't know why. You notice the cups. None of them match. Each one bears a crack, a chip, a blemish. But they are handled with reverence, as if each one remembers the hands that held it before. She points to one bowl in particular, a wide, flat vessel with a hairline fracture running through its rim. That one, she rasps, was for morning. You look closer. The glaze is storm gray, and the inside bears a faint, rust-colored fingerprint. She lifts it, fills it, and places it before the empty stool beside you. "For my husband," she says, then goes quiet again. You say nothing. There's nothing to say. The tea simmers, the cups cool. Steam keeps rising, curling, soft, invisible to anyone who isn't still. You wonder what memory tastes like to her. But that is a story for tomorrow night. You wake just before the light shifts. The shutters creak. The sky is not yet gold but gray. Blue, that flat, quiet color that happens before something breaks. And you smell it first. Not the honeyed dates or the roasted barley. Not even the camel sweat or the butcher's cloth. But something else. Something like salt and smoke. And maybe wax. You slip your feet onto the earth floor. The mat is still damp from last night's wash. Through the tiny opening in your stall's woven screen, you glimpse the far edge of the market where no sellers stand today. The tanner is not boiling. The perfume man is not stirring. Even the sesame grinder has left his stones stacked cold. You step out and the air hits you like a wall, still, hot but disturbed. Behind a stack of straw mats, someone whispers a prayer. A few paces on, an old man is sprinkling crushed rue into the dust. It is not market day. It is something else you breathe in, and what you smell is preparation, the waxy sweetness of sealed doors, the bitterness of herbal smoke waved under babies' noses, the sickly, sour tallow burned as warning. Vinegar, soaked cloth tied to doorposts. Something is coming, and every nose knows it. You wander through the half-open square. No shouting, no music, just the occasional thump of a closed shutter or the rattle of a wooden pestle grinding cloves not for trade, but for fear. One woman is washing her steps with lemon water. Another ties a sachet of garlic to her toddler's sash. Behind a shuttered silk stall, someone is boiling pine resin. You hear the crackle, then the hiss. No one smiles. You pause in front of the perfumer's stall. The door is open. No one is inside, but the shelf still holds the little clay bowls. Musk, myrrh, rose, cinnamon, camphor. All mixed now, all soured. The air is thick with abandoned sweetness, but it is the absence that stands out. The smell that is not there anymore. No camel fat. No sweating spice. No roasting grain. Just fear, cloaked in cinnamon. You sit on the market's edge and close your eyes. You let the air tell you what it knows. A single fig drops from a cart. A jug is sealed with wax. A young boy presses mint to his lips. The scent of survival is a quiet one. And just like that, the morning is over. But that is a story for tomorrow night. You wander deeper into the market, but something shifts. There is no sunlight here. Only a dim, dusty blue that clings to the stones like lichen. The smell, too, changes. It becomes thinner, stranger. As if the air is tired of carrying scents at all. You step into what the locals call the dying quarter. Not for the reasons you'd expect. No plague, no corpses, no executions. This is where smells go to vanish. And you, of course, follow them. The first thing you notice is the overwhelming stillness, not silence. There's always some noise in a city, but a heavy, scentless hush. The meat here is not raw, not cured, not smoked. It's been boiled and boiled again until it's pale and odorless, sold to the very old or the very poor. Even the spices sold here are gray. Dried too many seasons ago, their perfume long since bled into the burlap sacks they once slept in. You pass a woman selling dried fish wrapped in oilcloth, though you can't smell a thing. The fish have been pickled for so long they are no longer fish, but history. They're stacked like documents, ready for some culinary bureaucrat to inspect. The baker here makes nothing sweet. His oven produces only bitter flatbreads. dense, medicinal, and almost sterile. He grinds herbs not to flavor but to preserve. His fingers are cracked with salt and vinegar. You pause by a stand selling bundles of dried moss soaked in alum and ash. These were once stuffed into shoes and under tunics to absorb sweat without adding their own scent. You lift one to your nose, nothing, not even dust, only the faintest impression of having once been wet. There are scents here, but they are ghosts. You are walking among them. A row of broken pottery sits abandoned on a ledge, crusted with old oils and dried perfumes. You lean close, clove, possibly, or fennel, or thyme. A blind man squats by the wall, surrounded by tiny vials. He whispers something, no, he hums it, and offers you one. It's sealed with red wax. You uncork it gently. The scent is nothing at first, then a trace of something nearly impossible to name. The air just before a letter is opened. Wax, thread, stale ink, maybe even longing. You hand it back without a word. He nods as if you've passed a test. Further on, a child sells old hair, not wigs, just hair, stored in jars with a mixture of vinegar and salt. Some jars have labels, bride 17 springs, or monk before the oath. You open one, gag slightly, then laugh. Even rot can forget how to stink. A small, arched chamber stands at the end of the alley. Inside, incense burns, but only half. The coils are snapped in the middle. The scent rises, then collapses into the floor. The man inside grins, half, memories only, the rest we don't need. You sit on a cracked stone bench and breathe in the faintest soup of past decades. This place is an archive of olfactory shadows. The market's memory loss, sectioned neatly into stalls. There's no perfume here, no rose or musk. Just the echo of what once was a kind of fragrant forgetting. But as your eyes adjust, you realize something. It's not that these things have no scent. It's that their scent has gone underground. Hidden deep, like a root cellar of smells, waiting, so you kneel, press your nose to the warm, dust-packed stones, and inhale, there it is, the smell of someone's last prayer, the faint metal bite of old coins. Apricot jam sealed in an unloved pantry, linen stored too long in cedar, candle wax on wool. You close your eyes. The market is speaking again, but only because you've stopped trying to listen with your nose. The smells live under silence now. You shuffle through the thinning crowd as the sun begins to dip behind the tiled rooftops, casting bronze shadows along the cobbled stones. Your sandals catch the grit of the day-crushed petals, sand, blood, ash. The smell changes again. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, a new set of aromas creeps into your senses like a whisper behind the ears. It begins with a sharp sting, a metallic tang, so pure it puckers the back of your tongue. Your breath catches. You've wandered into the tinsmith's alley. A young apprentice sits cross-legged on a tattered mat, grinding copper shavings with a sandstone block. Each movement leaves behind streaks of sparkling green dust, oxidized and ancient, smelling almost like wet coins left buried in dirt. The heat of the afternoon has turned the alley into an oven. Here, tin, copper, and iron melt under roaring flames, shaped into bowls, lamps, and ewers by the relentless pounding of hammers. But it's not the sound that dominates, it's the scent. The overwhelming bouquet of metal, sweat, and smoke is like an alchemy spell gone halfway wrong. You inhale deeply. The burning coal releases a dark, sweet bitterness sulfur, laced and thick as molasses. It clings to the nostrils like a warning. Some forges add dried dung to the coals to make the burn longer, and it's that scent, too, that you catch now. Scorched manure under sharp bronze. A master smith dips a red, hot blade into a wooden tub, sending steam screeching skyward. The steam smells of wet oak and boiled iron, sour and earthy. The air is full of sooty sweat, old grease, and the tartness of tin being scraped clean. Further down, you pass a group of boys scraping rust from old iron pans with lemon rinds. The citrus cuts through the haze for a moment, bright, acidic, and blessedly sharp, but even that is tinged with iron. Here, even the lemons have learned to taste like blood. You rest against a wall of warm brick, and a new scent reaches you: spiced oil. A tinsmith polishes a set of perfume flasks with a cloth soaked in cardamom oil. The smell is oddly soothing, like an apology for all the brutality around it. It reminds you of kitchens, of sweet rice and chai boiled in copper kettles, but even that comfort feels distant now. You crouch near a basin filled with powdered grit, where a child grinds old brass into fine, golden dust. The scent of brass is peculiar, both metallic and woody, like burnt cedar mixed with pennies. It lingers in your throat, making you want to cough and sigh all at once. The master smith catches your eye. He gestures silently to a pot boiling something over a flame. You approach. Inside, a thick black tar made from boiled hooves and bone glue for mending cracks in metal seams. The smell is unbearable. Rotten sweetness, animal death, and burnt marrow combine into something like a battlefield feast. You look away quickly, blinking. The alley feels ancient, older than any marketplace, older than any shrine. It's the kind of place that teaches patience and pain. Here, tools are born. Here, noses suffer, and still there is something sacred about it all. The scents are not for pleasure, they are for permanence. They are the smell of labor etched into copper, of generations folding their breath into craft. No one here wears perfume. They wear soot and salt and molten tin. And you carry that smell with you now, baked into your skin, like the brand of a silent god. You retreat toward the next lane, but that scent follows you. But that is a story for tomorrow night. The smell arrives before anything else does, not through your nose, through your ribs, through the fragile skin beneath your jaw, through the softest parts of you, the ancient parts, the ones that remember every flower you've never seen. It curls into your chest like a stranger's whisper, sweet but fading. You stop beneath an awning of sun, warped linen, mouth parted, eyes squinting. No one else in the bazaar reacts. They rush past, squabble over prices, sweat into their silks. But you smell something that shouldn't exist, something like crushed violets and dry myrrh, and it's coming from a door that hasn't opened in years. You step closer. The door is thin wood. The sign above it is barely readable. Scratches and smudged letters. The only word you can make out is attar, the old name for perfume oil. You hesitate. The street is louder here, even though fewer feet pass. The heat pools strangely around the shutter. Everything feels paused, then the scent fades, and in that vanishing, you push the door. It opens too easily. Inside, it's not dark, it's amber. Sunlight filters in through amber glass panels on the roof, casting golden pools across dusty jars, delicate vials, paper packets tied in faded thread. Nothing here has moved in a long time. Shelves buckle slightly with the weight of age. Dried petals lie like spilled secrets along the floor. There is no merchant, no rustle, just stillness and smell. You take a cautious breath, and this time it hits, not one scent, but dozens. Heavy sandalwood, mint crushed underfoot, spikenard root aged like wine. Resin and rose, marigold and lemon balm. You smell every forgotten funeral, every vanished wedding, every morning ritual in palaces that crumbled centuries ago. You move through the space like someone inside a memory. On a low shelf lies a tiny box of glass, stoppered vials. Most are empty. 3 remain. They're labeled in fading Persian script. Dust of the king's parade, night milk, and he cried once. You unstopper the last one. The scent is indescribable. It smells like a secret that someone begged to forget. And in that moment, you remember the history of this place. The attar, makers of the Crescent Quarter, were once legends of scent. They were not just perfumers. They were chemists, poets, collectors of air. Their skills were more whispered than written. Some believed they could trap memories in oil. Others accused them of sorcery. Their recipes were never fully recorded, only passed from teacher to apprentice, from breath to breathe. Rose oil steeped with dates, cinnamon left to burn in camel bone, musk from deer who no longer roam the earth. The final touches were done by mouth. The attar master would spit slightly into the pot, not for contamination, but as signature. Every perfumer had a different kind of salt, and then, one by one, they disappeared. Some say it was fire. Others say the guild collapsed after a dispute with the spice taxers. But the truth was more banal. No one wanted them anymore. The new markets preferred cheaper oils from ships. Trade routes changed, time moved on, their stalls were shuttered, their apprentices died without passing on the last formulae, and the memories sealed in glass, they faded, or most of them did. You sit now on the tiled floor of the shop. No one has come in, no one even seems to see the open door. You open the vial again. He cried once, and you smell heartbreak that isn't yours. A father kneeling before a grave. A prince watching a ship vanish. A woman tearing her sleeve beneath an olive tree. You shouldn't be here, but the air holds you. You spot a shelf in the back. It's filled with notebooks. Thin, weathered, crumbling at the spine, you open one. No words, just stains, dabs of oil labeled only with dates. 28 Rabbi Al-Thani, mid-month in rain after she left. Each sent a time capsule, each one lost, and yet, here they sit. One bottle near the edge of the shelf catches the light. It's sealed with wax. Beside it, a torn scrap of parchment with one sentence. Whoever opens this, please remember us. You leave it sealed, not because you're afraid, but because forgetting is what killed them. And this time, you choose to remember. You sit a while longer. You listen to the silence. You breathe in the last perfume seller's ghosts. And when you finally rise and step out of the shop, you smell nothing at all. But that is a story for tomorrow night. The smell arrives before anything else does. Not through your nose, through your ribs, through the fragile skin beneath your jaw, through the softest parts of you, the ancient parts, the ones that remember every flower you've never seen. It curls into your chest like a stranger's whisper, sweet but fading. You stop beneath an awning of sun, warped linen, mouth parted, eyes squinting. No one else in the bazaar reacts. They rush past, squabble over prices, sweat into their silks. But you smell something that shouldn't exist, something like crushed violets and dry myrrh, and it's coming from a door that hasn't opened in years. You step closer. The door is thin wood. The sign above it is barely readable, scratches and smudged letters. The only word you can make out is attar, the old name for perfume oil. You hesitate. The street is louder here, even though fewer feet pass. The heat pools strangely around this shutter. Everything feels paused, then the scent fades, and in that vanishing, you push the door. It opens too easily. Inside, it's not dark. It's amber. Sunlight filters in through amber glass panels on the roof, casting golden pools across dusty jars, delicate vials, paper packets tied in faded thread. Nothing here has moved in a long time. Shelves buckle slightly with the weight of age. Dried petals lie like spilled secrets along the floor. There is no merchant, no rustle, just stillness. And smell. You take a cautious breath, and this time it hits, not one scent but dozens. Heavy sandal, wood mint crushed underfoot, spikenard root aged like wine, resin and rose, marigold and lemon balm. You smell every forgotten funeral, every vanished wedding, every morning ritual in palaces that crumbled centuries ago. You move through the space like someone inside a memory. On a low shelf lies a tiny box of glass-stoppered vials. Most are empty. 3 remain. They're labeled in fading Persian script. Dust of the king's parade, night milk, and he cried once. You unstopper the last one. The scent is indescribable. It smells like a secret that someone begged to forget. And in that moment, you remember the history of this place. The attar, makers of the Crescent Quarter, were once legends of scent. They were not just perfumers. They were chemists, poets, collectors of air. Their skills were more whispered than written. Some believed they could trap memories in oil. Others accused them of sorcery. Their recipes were never fully recorded, only passed from teacher to apprentice, from breath to breathe. Rose oil steeped with dates, cinnamon left to burn in camel bone, musk from deer who no longer roam the earth. The final touches were done by mouth. The attar master would spit slightly into the pot. Not for contamination, but as signature. Every perfumer had a different kind of salt, and then, one by one, they disappeared. Some say it was fire. Others say the guild collapsed after a dispute with the spice taxers. But the truth was more banal. No one wanted them anymore. The new markets preferred cheaper oils from ships. Trade routes changed. Time moved on. Their stalls were shuttered. Their apprentices died without passing on the last formulae. And the memories sealed in glass, they faded, or most of them did. You sit now on the tiled floor of the shop. No one has come in. No one even seems to see the open door. You open the vial again, he cried once. And you smell heartbreak that isn't yours. A father kneeling before a grave. A prince watching a ship vanish. A woman tearing her sleeve beneath an olive tree. You shouldn't be here, but the air holds you. You spot a shelf in the back. It's filled with notebooks, thin, weathered, crumbling at the spine. You open one. No words, just stains. Dabs of oil, labeled only with dates. 28, Rabbi Thani, mid-month in rain after she left. Each sent a time capsule. Each one lost, and yet here they sit. One bottle, near the edge of the shelf, catches the light. It's sealed with wax. Beside it, a torn scrap of parchment with one sentence. Whoever opens this, please remember us. You leave it sealed. Not because you're afraid, but because forgetting is what killed them. And this time, you choose to remember. You sit a while longer. You listen to the silence. You breathe in the last perfume seller's ghosts. And when you finally rise and step out of the shop, you smell nothing at all. But that is a story for tomorrow.